Live across Australia, you're watching ABC News 24. Hello, I'm Nick Dole. Libya's National Transitional Council troops say they are poised to declare victory in their long siege of Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte. The NTC says troops are carrying out a mopping-up operation in the city's number 2 residential neighbourhood. Libya's new rulers say that only once Sirte has fallen will they declare the country's liberation and begin the transition to an elected government. Now, we'll just bring you up to date with some of the latest lines coming to us from Libya, and we should stress that the reports that we've been hearing are unconfirmed, but Libyan government fighters have been quoted by the Reuters news agency as saying that he witnessed the capture of the former leader Muammar Gaddafi. There's another line saying that Gaddafi was found hiding in a hole in Sirte, shouting, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." And the US State Department says it has heard these rumours. It's doing its best to confirm these rumours that the former dictator Muammar Gaddafi has been found in the city of Sirte. For more on this developing story, we're going to cross live to our broadcast partners, Al Jazeera English.
You're coming out of the NTC.
Yes, and that, I think, is how the Libyan people, on the whole, see those that came here and fought when they originally arrived here in Tripoli. I think, though, as time passes, the problems start. I think in any country, anywhere in the world, if there's an influx of people from another city, particularly in a country like this that has strong regional rivalries, there's going to be tensions. We've heard of tensions here in areas where there's Misrata fighters are based, also in areas where the fighters from the Nafusa Mountains, the people, for example, from Zintan are based. That is understandable, and I think they now need to find a system where there's no longer the Zintan Brigade and the Misrata Brigade, where those that want to keep a weapon sign up to a national army and a national police force.
James, thank you so much in Tripoli. We'll be coming back to you, I'm sure, very soon. You're watching Al Jazeera's extended coverage of the Libyan revolution. A reminder of the latest developments. Libya's former leader, Muammar Gaddafi, appears to have been captured alive in Sirte. Al Jazeera sources are telling us Gaddafi is critically wounded, but state media says he may be dead and being taken to the port city of Misrata. We'll bring you confirmation as soon as we get it. Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte appears to have fallen after weeks of heavy fighting. Early reports suggested that NATO fired on a 100-car convoy trying to leave the city, and that Gaddafi and his son Motassim may have been in that convoy. Anti-Gaddafi fighters have been celebrating throughout the city. One fighter raised the flag of the new Libya. The National Transitional Council had said the country would not be free until Sirte falls. And this is what we're seeing live now from Sirte. Fighters milling around the city centre. The main fight was really centred about 700 square metres in the middle of Sirte, where those Gaddafi loyalist fighters were still holding out until very much this morning on Libyan times. What we understand, the Colonel Gaddafi and Motassim Gaddafi was inside that area, and that may well be why they were fighting so hard to hang on to the centre of Sirte. But we're hearing from inside Sirte, from Al Jazeera sources, that they very much now have control of that city, and there's an attempt to flee from that city in a convoy by Colonel Gaddafi and his son Motassim. Reportedly was stopped, and that Colonel Gaddafi, we are told, was injured as he attempted to flee. We can go back to James Bays in Tripoli. Celebrations getting a little livelier there, James, now?
Yes, celebrations certainly getting more lively here. It took some time. The news has been coming through minute by minute over the last couple of hours, but certainly the news has come through. You can hear the car horns, I think, behind me, the sound of the car horns. We've had the ships in the harbour here sounding their horns. There's one now as people here celebrate the news, which I think they're now piecing together, that's come through from Sirte. Yes, there were very heavy battles in Sirte in recent weeks, in recent days.
OK, James, I'm just going to interrupt you there. Sorry to cut you short in full flow, but we're now hearing from Al Jazeera sources that Colonel Gaddafi has been killed in the city of Sirte. We understand that the former Libyan leader has indeed been killed inside Sirte as the NTC fighters were trying to take that city. We understand there was an attempt to flee by a convoy there, and there are reports that he was indeed killed as that convoy was trying to leave. If I pop back to you now, sorry to interrupt you, James, but again, extraordinary events in Sirte, and if it's indeed true, this brings to an end, really, 6 months of conflict.
A very dramatic end if it is definitely confirmed. Let me give you the information as we have it from the beginning of the day, as we try and piece together what's sometimes been some contradictory and confused information. What is clear is that in recent days, Gaddafi loyalists were pushed in Sirte to a small area of the town, their backs against the sea, and slowly the National Transitional Council fighters were making their way into this last stronghold. A few hours ago, the National Transitional Council entered this final area, and then it appears that the Gaddafi loyalists staged a breakout. They got in their cars with their weapons, and they tried, as many of them as possible, to escape, driving out of Sirte, heading in the direction of Misrata. They were stopped by gunfire. They were stopped, we believe, by a NATO attack as well. And we believe that in this convoy of vehicles, among key Gaddafi loyalists, at the head of the military, the former education minister, was Gaddafi's son Motasim, and we understand Gaddafi himself. The information we have about him, first report said that he had been wounded, shot in both legs. Now we're hearing that he has died of his injuries.
We're also hearing reports, James, that Gaddafi's government spokesman Musa Ibrahim was indeed captured. Those are obviously unconfirmed reports coming from a Libyan commander reported by Reuters. Musa Ibrahim, an extraordinary figure, really. Any journalist that was in Tripoli when it was still held by the Gaddafi regime used to have press conferences with him almost on a daily basis, where he told them all sorts of wonderful stories that they believe weren't true, but he will always be remembered, really, as the Gaddafi apologist, I suppose.
He was the mouthpiece of the regime, certainly in those final days, and certainly throughout the period of NATO bombardment, as you say, briefing journalists sometimes very regularly throughout the conflict. I'm not sure what light he will shed on the last 42 years of Gaddafi rule, but I think he will be interesting to the National Transitional Council with regard to what happened since Tripoli fell. Where exactly did Gaddafi go? Who was giving him shelter? Where was he staying? Because we understand all the way along, and aircraft weapons being fired as often they do. But he was...
as long as they're not being fired in your direction, James.
You have to be careful here. They do fire things in the air, and actually it's very dangerous. We've heard when they've been firing in Green Square, there's always one or two casualties, sometimes some fatalities, so we do have to be careful.
Well, if you duck down, we'll understand why.
As I was saying, Musa Ibrahim is, I think, an important figure, and all of those being captured, I think, will shed important light not just on what has been happening in the last few days and weeks, the last 2 months since Tripoli fell, but some of the longer-term figures, like Gaddafi's cousin, who we're told has been captured, may well give more information about Gaddafi's rule that lasted almost 42 years in this country. Of course, though, the National Transitional Council wanted to put on trial the man who had run this country for so long. And if we get confirmed that he is dead, I think there will be a great deal of regret here, because they wanted him on trial.
Just breaking in again, James, to say that Al Jazeera sources are telling us that Colonel Gaddafi was killed in a gun battle. There are reports that he was trying to flee the city of Sirte as it fell today to National Transitional Council fighters, and that indeed that convoy, if it was the case, this convoy was trying to escape, came under fire. There was some sort of gun battle, and we are being told that he's been killed in a gun battle. We're now hearing it possibly wasn't part of the convoy, but it was some sort of firefight. We understand initial reports are that he was wounded in both legs, but we're now hearing that he has actually died. They are unconfirmed reports, but that's what our sources are telling us in the city of Sirte. Just going back to Musa Ibrahim, James, what I always found fascinating was what was going on behind the scenes. We never got to really understand what was happening in the months inside of Tripoli as the NATO strikes were happening, what was going on inside the palaces, really. And I suppose somebody like Musa Ibrahim could shed light, if he wanted to, on what life was like then.
Well, I think they will certainly be trying to get those key aides, including Musa Ibrahim, to try and tell us all of the details, all of what was going on. I think they'll be interested to know what support Gaddafi was possibly getting from other countries. Was there support coming, as has been alleged, for example, from the Chinese, who was supplying Gaddafi's military? Remember, the National Transitional Council, once there is an election here in the early summer of next year, then will be in a position to award important contracts worth many millions of dollars, and I think they'll take it into account if some other nations were helping the Gaddafi forces during the period of war. I think it's interesting news that perhaps Gaddafi himself was not in that convoy, that perhaps he was captured and then killed or died of his injuries elsewhere in Sirte, suggesting to me, and I'm only guessing here, that possibly that convoy was some sort of diversionary tactic so that Gaddafi could escape. That, of course, is a possibility now.
James, live in Tripoli, thank you. Just obviously hold on there, because we'll be coming back to you later on. But as we've been reporting, Al Jazeera sources have confirmed Muammar Gaddafi has been killed in a gun battle in Sirte. Matthew Moore has his profile of the former Libyan leader who led the country for over 40 years.
He was Libya's self-styled revolutionary leader who ruled with an iron fist for more than 40 years. Colonel Muammar Gaddafi said he would rather die than step down from the leadership of Libya. But his grip on power also resulted in the death of many others. He leaves behind a country deeply scarred by his rule.
Gaddafi was delusional, unpredictable, disloyal, vindictive, and bent on entering history in the most significant way, even if that comes at the expense of people around him.
In September 1969, a 27-year-old Muammar Gaddafi led a group of army officers in a coup against King Idris. They proclaimed a new Libyan Arab Republic. Gaddafi modelled himself on Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser. The young colonel wanted to be a leader of the Arab world. At home, Gaddafi declared a cultural revolution. People's committees were formed. They were used to take over businesses and silence dissidents. Many disappeared. Gaddafi published the Green Book, which established the rule of the masses. In reality, the colonel exercised nearly total control of government. He even ordered the adoption of a new calendar, based on the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Meanwhile, Gaddafi antagonized the West, particularly the United States, which labeled Libya a state sponsor of terrorism.
Mad dog of the Middle East has a goal of a world revolution, Muslim fundamentalist revolution, which is targeted on...
Gaddafi did support the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and he funded the Irish Republican Army and Colombia's FARC guerrillas. Then, in 1986, a Libyan-sponsored attack on a discotheque in Berlin killed 3 and wounded more than 250, including 50 American servicemen. The US responded by launching a series of airstrikes on Libya. Targets included Gaddafi's residence in Tripoli, killing more than 100 people, including Gaddafi's adopted daughter, Hannah. 2 years later, Pan Am Flight 103 was blown up over the town of Lockerbie in Scotland, killing 270 people. Gaddafi denied involvement. Libya endured years of UN sanctions and international isolation, but he eventually surrendered the suspects demanded by London and Washington, D.C. Then came September 11th. Gaddafi joined the West in fighting al-Qaeda. he abandoned his development of weapons of mass destruction. But Arab world ties remained strained. There had been claims that Libyan intelligence was behind a plot to assassinate the Saudi king Abdullah bin Abdulaziz. At a regional summit to try to avert the US-led invasion of Iraq, Gaddafi accused the Saudis of being US puppets, prompting an angry response from the then Crown Prince Abdullah.
Saudi Arabia is not a slave to colonial forces like you and others. Who brought you into power? Tell me the truth. Who brought you into power?
By then, Gaddafi had done enough to be welcomed back onto the world stage, playing host to world leaders in the spotlight. Estranged from the Arab world, Gaddafi turned to Africa. He proposed a United States of Africa, a grandiose project that was never taken seriously. As an uprising against Gaddafi gathered earlier this year, he blamed everyone from the United States to Al-Qaeda and the so-called drugged-up rats and cats of Libya. In one of his last televised addresses, Gaddafi threatened massive violence to quash protesters. Following a push through Libya by opposition groups backed by NATO firepower, Gaddafi lost his grip on Tripoli. Gaddafi's hometown of Sirte was his final stronghold. Africa and the Arab world's longest ruling leader has left Libya in tatters. Despite its oil wealth, the vast majority of Libyans live on around $2 a day. 40% are jobless. Many will remember Gaddafi as the leader who set Libya back many years. Matthew Moore, Al Jazeera.